Please subscribe. Enjoy the story. It was a chilly winter morning on December 30, 1947, in the bustling city of Haifa in Mandatory Palestine. The sun had barely risen, and the streets were already filled with people going about their day. Amongst them were a group of Arab day laborers who had gathered outside the main gate of the British-owned Haifa Oil Refinery, hoping to find some work for the day. The Haifa Oil Refinery was one of the largest and busiest refineries in the region, and it employed both Jews and Arabs. The workers at the refinery had always been known for their good relations, and it was common to see Jewish and Arab workers working side by side, sharing a laugh or a friendly conversation. However, tensions had been rising in Palestine in the wake of the 1947 UN partition plan, which aimed to divide the land into two states, one for Jews and one for Arabs. The plan had been met with resistance from both sides, and violence had been escalating in the region. It was in this tense atmosphere that the day laborers gathered outside the refinery gates that morning. Suddenly, without warning, a vehicle drove by and members of the Zionist paramilitary organization, the Irgun, threw a number of grenades at the group of workers. The attack was swift and brutal, and 6 Arabs were killed, and 42 others were wounded. The attack on the day laborers was a shocking act of violence, and it sent shockwaves throughout the city. The Arab refinery workers and others immediately began attacking the Jewish refinery workers in retaliation for the Irgun's actions. The situation quickly spiraled out of control, and before long, 39 Jewish workers were dead, and 49 were injured. The British Army and Palestine police units arrived on the scene to put an end to the violence, but the damage had already been done. The Haifa Oil Refinery Massacre had taken place, and it would go down in history as one of the darkest days in Palestine's history. The Jewish Agency condemned the Irgun's actions, calling it an act of madness, but they also authorized retaliation. The Haganah, another Zionist paramilitary organization, mounted a retaliatory raid on 2 nearby Arab villages, Balad al-Sheikh and Hawassa, where some of the Arab refinery workers lived. The Haganah fired into and blew up houses, resulting in the deaths of between 21 and 70 Arabs, including women and children. The retaliation, which became known as the Balad al-Sheikh Massacre, only served to escalate the already tense situation in the region. The Haifa Oil Refinery Massacre was a tragic event that left a lasting impact on the people of Palestine. The attack on the day laborers and the subsequent violence that followed only served to fuel the already simmering tensions between Jews and Arabs in the region. The incident was a stark reminder of the high price that people paid for the struggle for independence and the bitter divide between the two communities. It was a moment that changed the course of history and would be remembered for generations to come. In the aftermath of the Haifa Oil Refinery Massacre and the Balad al-Sheikh Massacre, the situation in Palestine continued to deteriorate. Violence between Jews and Arabs escalated, and both sides became increasingly entrenched in their positions. The international community was also watching the situation closely, and the United Nations became involved in trying to find a solution to the conflict. However, their efforts were ultimately unsuccessful, and the violence continued to escalate. In May 1948, the State of Israel was declared, and the Arab-Israeli War began. The war would last for over a year and result in the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from their homes and the creation of the Palestinian refugee crisis. The Haifa Oil Refinery Massacre would come to be seen as a turning point in the conflict, marking the beginning of a new phase of violence and bloodshed. The attack on the day laborers and the subsequent retaliation by the Haganah showed just how deep the divide between Jews and Arabs had become and how difficult it would be to find a peaceful solution to the conflict. In the years that followed, the memory of the Haifa Oil Refinery Massacre and the Balad al-Sheikh Massacre would be kept alive by both sides, serving as a reminder of the pain and suffering that had been inflicted on the people of Palestine. The events of that fateful day would continue to haunt the region, and the wounds that had been opened would take generations to heal. Today, the Haifa Oil Refinery stands as a symbol of the region's complicated history, a reminder of the violence and bloodshed that took place there and the struggle for peace and justice that continues to this day. The memory of the massacre serves as a warning of the dangers of intolerance and extremism, a call to strive for understanding and reconciliation in the face of deep divisions and long-standing conflicts. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.